All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to No Punt Intended podcast here on Entertainment Buddha. Be sure to check us out at entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek one post at a time. With me, as always, is the number nerd himself, Mr. Justin Ludwig.
You know, week 6, I would love to say we're starting to separate the pretenders from the contenders, but I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah, there's still some teams trying to figure everything out. Just when you think you have a read on teams and you're trying to put everybody in their place, things just get mixed up. We had, Green Bay coming out strong Thursday night against the Vikings. The Panthers came back strong against the Bears. The Browns came back from a 25-point deficit to win against the Titans. The Eagles almost blew the game to the Rams. It's just crazy. And obviously Sunday night we had the Patriots absolutely crushing the Bengals, which, neither of us saw coming.
No, and you're right. There's a lot of parity going on in the NFL today. But try this on for size. There are no undefeated teams after week 5. You know the last time this happened? 2010. 2013, 12, and 11, we had at least two undefeated teams after week 5. And now we have none. It's like no team is able to rise to the top. No team is able to separate themselves from the rest of the NFL pack, make themselves the alpha dogs. They're all just kind of battling within the NFL after week 5.
Well, and that'll kind of make the rest of the season a little bit more exciting since there doesn't seem to be a clear dominant team. There's always those Dolphins fans out there who are happy when this happens, so Mercury Morris and the rest of the 72 Dolphins can pop that champagne a little early this season.
Well, that might be the case, but as far as making predictions and projections, just makes things more difficult. More difficult indeed. So let's head on here. Our next stop on this train is the Thrillers and Chillers. So who do you have for us this week? Thrillers and Chillers from my thriller. He was projected to score just 1 point, but because of injury, he was thrust into the limelight. It's Brandon Oliver, the running back for the San Diego Superchargers. 19 rushing attempts, 144 yards, and he found pay dirt once to score 29 fantasy points. He's also only owned in 0.7% of ESPN leagues.
Well, I have a feeling he'll be owned in a few more after this week's performance.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. He's especially getting some highlight from Mr. Fantasy himself, Matthew Berry, so I think Brandon Oliver's stock is going to rise this week.
The price of Brandon Oliver just went up.
Way up, my friend. As far as Chillers, we have Steve Smith Sr.
Okay.
Steve Smith Sr.
Okay.
Wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. I wouldn't call it a bad week. I would just call it not living up to the expectation. He had 5 receptions, only 34 yards. He lost a fumble, and he built on that projection of 15 points to score just 1 fantasy point. Just one. But that's in a non-PPR league, but even still, he didn't do so as well.
Well, one's better than none, as they say.
One's better than none. You're right. At least he scored some points, but
not like the other week against Carolina, though.
No. It was quite the opposite. Even though Baltimore didn't score as many points, it just seemed like the focus was elsewhere for those Ravens in their loss to Indianapolis.
Yeah, those Colts are looking pretty good.
They don't seem to get quite the respect. Speaking of respect, I didn't get any respect for my week 4 picks after I went 4-9, but last week, week 5, 10-5.
Whoa.
A 10-5. I even beat you.
Did I get my 7 wins?
No, you got 8.
All right.
You were kind of close.
Okay.
It was a pretty good week for projections, though. The Microsoft Cortana engine went 13-2. 13-2.
After going 4 and whatever last week, right?
Surprisingly, that was matched by Nate Silver's ELO rating model, which also went 13-2. So it was a pretty good week for picking games. Or maybe things just didn't, go awry. Except, the New England game, which I got wrong, which we got wrong.
Yeah, we both got that wrong. I will say, however, that leading up to the game, I did play some cookies on the Patriots after all, because apparently with all these people picking the Patriots and me initially thinking Cincinnati, I must have been missing something. So I put a couple cookies on the Patriots in a parlay that I ended up winning. So I'm a little thankful for that. Even though my picks here didn't work out that way, I feel that was vindicated.
Vindicated.
Yeah. How about that?
Swayed by popular opinion. I see how you go.
And you know what? It paid off this week, so we'll see.
Okay. I see. Go against your picks. I see.
Well, when we do this, we record this podcast on a Tuesday. By the time Sunday rolls around, you're second guessing yourself 50 times. So, these things happen.
Guess that's how the cookies crumble.
Well, my cookies didn't crumble this week. At least with those picks.
If you're betting cookies, would that change the Kenny Rogers classic song? Do you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to eat them?
It might. I mean, because he's referring to chips.
You never count your cookies while you're sitting at the table.
I guess not. I mean,
there'll be time enough for counting and eating when the dealing's done, and if there's milk, if there's milk,
yeah,
if there's milk.
All right, we ready to move on with this week's picks?
But I digress.
I digest.
Oh,
yeah, you like that? Little food joke there. All right.
You did.
Yeah. Speaking of those Colts, we have Indianapolis at Houston Thursday night. Indy is -2.5.
Oh wow, the Colts are first. What are the odds?
Is this going to be another blowout game like every other Thursday night game this year?
You'd think so. Trouble is that it's usually the home team that's usually doing the whooping.
Mm-hmm.
Only week 4 when it was the Giants at the Washington professional football team was that trend reversed.
Right. Yeah, they laid a whooping on Kirk Cousins that week.
Yeah, they did. I don't know that Houston's got it in them. I mean, Andrew Luck, they're not winning these games. Some of these games are a bit closer than they like, especially last week when they only beat Baltimore by 7 points. Plus, this line's only 2.5. It's pretty favorable for Luck and the Colts. That's who I'm taking.
I'm taking the Colts too.
Yeah.
Their offense is first in points per game at 30. Actually, they're tied for first with the Eagles at 31.2 points per game. So even though last week's game against Baltimore was a little closer than some of their others, they're still putting up a lot of points. And even with them facing J.J. Watt, I don't know that Houston has enough to stop Mr. Luck and T.Y. Hilton and Ahmad Bradshaw and Reggie Wayne. So we'll see what happens with that. But I got a feeling Indianapolis is going to come out strong, and it might be another blowout game. We just don't know. These primetime games are kind of sketchy that way this year.
Yeah, I mean, as far as scheduling goes, these teams are kind of, on an even tilt. Both of them played in the early afternoon on Sunday. Now they're playing on Thursday. Doesn't seem like it's a clear advantage. But I don't know. These Thursday games are a little weird.
Little weird, little wacky.
A little wild, yeah.
All crazy stuff.
If they would have had them on Wednesdays, we would have called them the Wild Wednesday game, but
What can we come up with a name for Thursday?
Thursday. I'll have to think about that. I'm gonna come up with something in like a half hour. Don't worry.
All right. We'll come back to that. Just shout it out when it comes to you. Don't give me any warning.
Okay.
All right. Who do we have next here?
Jacksonville at Tennessee, with Tennessee favored by 6 points.
A lot
of points. A lot of points, especially for two teams we don't really know. I mean,
yeah,
we do and we don't.
I mean, we know Charlie Whitehurst isn't much worse than Jake Locker.
Mm-hmm.
But is that not worse factor enough to beat Jacksonville by 6? Like, is Jacksonville that bad?
I don't know that they're that bad. I just don't know that all their skill players are doing quite the job that they should be.
We need more Bortles and Hearns.
Bortles and Hearns. Hearns really had a pretty poor showing last week. Had a couple of drop balls. Just wasn't quite on his game. Bortles, he's got some skill. I don't know that he's an elite quarterback. Plus, it doesn't really help that they have, still no running game that they can depend on, which really doesn't help them spread their offense out.
Right, right. Their offensive line's pretty bad, so that helps. That affects the running game and the fact that Bortles, has to take off more than he probably should.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only tough thing with Tennessee that they don't really have a lot of, breakout. What I would imagine are breakout skill players.
Right.
I mean, their big receiving target is Kendall Wright, but he's kind of more of a possession receiver.
Right. So who are you taking?
I mean, I'm taking Tennessee only because Jacksonville is just way too shaky. Their offense doesn't seem like they're proving a lot. They also tend to give up a lot of points sometimes, even though last week Pittsburgh, but I don't know about Pittsburgh either. But I mean, they did give up 33 the week before to San Diego. So maybe if Tennessee can get a quarterback situation that's, cooking, maybe Tennessee can score a bunch of points. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to take Tennessee too. I was tossing up the idea of taking Jacksonville, but I just can't bring myself to do it. So, like you said, everything with Jacksonville is just kind of all over the place. The rushing game's not there. Bortles is, thrusted into this, lineup with a terrible offensive line and, receivers who are dropping balls who, maybe if they had Justin Blackman, obviously he was suspended indefinitely, maybe if that hadn't happened to him, they might have a little better shot offensively. But, I mean, the Titans last week, they played pretty well. They had like I said earlier, they had a 25-point lead on Cleveland, and obviously that didn't work out for them in the end, but they still put up 28 points. Whitehurst had 2 touchdowns, so I think they can win this game, and I think they can win it by at least 6. So, just give me Tennessee. They're playing at home, and I think they're going to be a little bitter about that 25-point giveaway they had last week.
Now, I don't mean to make you a little apprehensive about that pick you just had. Check this out. The last 3 years, these teams have always met twice. They're division rivals, so this is a battle for the bottom of the AFC South. However, in each of the last 3 years, Jacksonville has won the first meeting, and then Tennessee has won the second meeting. Yeah. Mission accomplished.
You know what? I'm still sticking with Tennessee because you knew that. So you knew that, and you still took Tennessee. So there.
I like your logic. I see what you did there. You used my own tactics against me.
But yeah, it's all reverse. No, it's not reverse psychology. It's I don't know what it's called, but I'm seeing through your games here. I'm looking through. I'm looking past.
All right. Well, we're both on the same page for the first two. Let's see if the third one sways our opinion. I don't think it will, but it's Baltimore at Tampa Bay, with Baltimore favored by 3 points.
Baltimore.
I'm taking, Baltimore.
Yeah.
Tampa sucks.
They do. Mike Glennon kind of had some things going for him. They did put up 31 against the Saints last week, but I think Baltimore's defense is a little tougher than the Saints, as we saw with the Indianapolis game. But I just don't see Tampa winning this game, and I can certainly see Baltimore winning by more than 3.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tampa only benefited last week because of that double-digit spread they had against New Orleans. So they thought, you know what, we're not going to succumb to the double-digit spread. Let's make it close enough. Let's make it close enough.
Close enough that people start pulling out their hair.
Yeah. I mean, it's close enough that they don't, they still win the double-digit spread, but now it's only 3 points, which actually doesn't seem like that many. Huh. Well, Baltimore by 3. I'm taking them.
All right. So we're matched up through 3 games?
Yeah.
All right. Next
Last week
have...
it took us till the 5th game.
Well, that's true. That's true. So let's see what happens with this one. It's not a double-digit spread, but it's close. We have Denver at the New York Jets. Denver is -9 on the road.
It's on the road. It's a lot of points. What do the gambling rules say about shaky quarterback at home.
Which quarterback?
Oh, good question. It'd be nice to see Michael Vick get a little more burn.
Yeah.
Do you think they do that? Do you think they kind of swap out Geno Smith as he kind of...
I don't know. It's tough to say because you never know with Rex Ryan. He's kind of a little unorthodox. He might just throw Geno Smith back in there against Denver and say, good luck, kid. But Denver -9 on the road.
They did score a lot of points last week.
Oh, they did, and Jets scored 0. So, a lot of points versus 0 points is one thing, but obviously this is going to be a completely different game. So, can I put a caveat on this bet, on this pick?
Sure.
All right. If Geno Smith starts the game, I'll take Denver. If Michael Vick starts, I'm tempted to take the Jets. You know what? No, you
just do it.
Just give me Denver. You know what? Just give me Denver.
Yeah,
I'll take Denver at -9. Peyton Manning's an animal. He's going to throw for like 500 yards again. So, yeah, just
the Jets' running game's just terrible.
Very terrible.
It's terrible.
Terrible.
It's so terrible. It's terrible.
Well, and their rush defense for most of the year was pretty good, but last week they gave up a ton of yards to some guy named Brandon Oliver, if you can believe that. Third string running back was getting all those. I think he had, what'd you say? How many yards he had?
The third string guy. Holy moly!
Yeah, he had. What'd you say? 100 something yards.
What did I say? 144 yards.
144 yards against
19 attempts.
On 19 attempts.
A little over 7 yards carry.
That it is. I'm just looking at where the Jets defense ranks. They were ranked 6th in rush yards per game at 83, and they gave up 140-ish last week. So I don't know if that's something they can overcome or fix. Now, granted, Denver's not really known for the rushing game, but if they get 100 yards out of Hillman or Monte Ball, that's just going to open up the passing game like crazy for Peyton.
Yeah. Last week just showed that Peyton's just... You can throw it to anybody.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas finally had a Demaryius Thomas-like week, so, I mean, it shows, maybe he's coming around. But I just don't see the Jets keeping it close.
No, the only point of hesitation, I'm not talking myself out of this, so I'm not worried about it. But Denver is 1-3 against the spread this year, and 9 points is a lot of points.
Well, I feel like most of Denver's spreads have been double digit.
They're all pretty high. Last week was 7. 2 weeks ago they were actually the underdog.
Oh, because that was Seattle.
Well, I'm sorry, 3 weeks ago when they were against Seattle.
Right.
Before that, it was 13 points. And then before that, it was 7.5.
All right, so maybe not as many double-digit points as they may have had last year, but
it's still pretty big.
Yeah,
it's still usually a large spread for Denver to overcome. So
true.
Those Jets, they're terrible.
They are. I don't know what's going to happen. You think Rex Ryan makes it through the season?
No.
You think he's the next coach fired after Allen over there in Oakland territory?
Interesting proposition. I don't know. There are some teams that are still kind of worse than them Jets. Not many. But there are some. Jacksonville might be one.
I think Jacksonville is one, yes.
Yeah. Oh, well. Hopefully we can find some greener pastures with some more of these games. For instance, Detroit at Minnesota. Detroit's favored by 1.5. Teddy Bridgewater. It's the Teddy Bridgewater show.
Is he expected to be back and starting this week?
Well, I think the only reason that he didn't play last week was because it was the Thursday game.
Oh, right. There was only a couple days in between.
Yep. According to the current notes, it says he did not practice Tuesday. But it seems like they're somewhat optimistic that he will suit up for Sunday.
Okay. That 1.5. Let's see.
But he's questionable right now.
Questionable. All right. So if Teddy Bridgewater starts, I will take. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that again. And they're talking about benching Calvin Johnson too. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he's just not playing well, and they're talking about just sitting him out a game. So, I'll take Minnesota.
He is listed as questionable, so maybe he's just not playing kind of 100%.
Right.
The only thing that I'm not liking is this. Naturally, when I highlight Matt Asiata, after he has a great week 4, he doesn't have as great of a week 5. Of course, he didn't score 3 touchdowns like he did in week 4.
That's the Justin Jinx coming into play.
I know, I always do that. I gotta stop that. Well, but it'd be nice if I really wanted to see Teddy Bridgewater play last week, and I didn't get that. But even still, I don't know. They're playing at Minnesota. I have this feeling like Bridgewater might play. That's why I'm taking Minnesota. I'm taking the underdog.
All right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another 5 in a row that we match.
Yeah.
We gotta.
I don't think we're gonna do it in the next game either.
No, you know what? Next game is New England at Buffalo. New England's -3. I'm assuming you're taking New England.
This also might get my vote for the my favorite early game.
All right. Well, we're not done with the early game, so let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
I know, but it's a division game. It's got a lot on the line. They're both at the top of the AFC East. You might even say they're probably near the top of the American Football Conference. Even though they're both 3-2.
True. Does Kyle Orton start again this week?
Yeah, I think so.
After they beat Detroit last week and Alex Henry gets cut and after he misses 3 field goals?
Yeah, I just feel like it's easier to have more faith in Kyle Orton as a passer. And I think trying to, give Sammy Watkins some reps, try and build him up as a more dependable deep threat or, to make him a more dependable receiver. I think Kyle Orton's kind of the answer for them. He's a better passer than EJ Manuel, even though he doesn't have, quite the fleet of foot. But I think he's a better pocket presence for them.
Right, and he's played in the NFL long enough that he knows his strengths and weakness, so he's able to stand in there and make some better decisions, ones that EJ Manuel might not be able to make at this time in his career. So, but as far as the pick goes, I'm taking New England as well. They really put everything together last week. So, Brady got surpassed 50,000 yards in his career in passing, so that was a special moment for them. Gronkowski looked like the Gronkowski that we're all used to.
Stephen Ridley looked like the Stephen Ridley that sometimes has great games.
Yeah, that's Stephen Ridley that we're like, whoa, he can do that. And then next game he has 20 carries for 30 yards, and we're like, that's the Stephen Ridley we're used to.
Well, now that you mention that, back in week 2, when they beat Minnesota 30-7, not unlike 43-17, Stephen Ridley had 25 carries for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. Against Cincinnati, he had 27 attempts, 113 yards and 1 touchdown. The game after Minnesota, 19 carries, 54 yards. Well, we'll see. Buffalo does have a pretty good rush defense, so
they do. They're second to Seattle in rush yards allowed per game. So chances are Brady's going to have to continue his passing to the Gronk and Julian Edelman and Brandon LaFell. So I think
in Buffalo. That does warrant some cutoff sleeves on some sweatshirts.
Yeah. The more cutoff sleeves, the better. I always say so. Maybe when I'm watching the game, I'll rip up an old sweatshirt just to be one with Belichick, as they say.
Of course you will. Looks awesome.
I'll have to wear a pink headband or whatever since it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
As long as it's coupled with a no-sleeve sweatshirt.
All right. I'll see what I can do. All right. So that's another one there we're both taking. So Let's try this next one on for size. We got Carolina at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is -7.
I know we're not picking the same one. I'm
Try
taking
me.
Carolina.
Ugh. You know what? I am. Are we jumping off the Cincinnati bandwagon too early, or are we just overvaluing
No.
Carolina's defeat of the Bears last week?
No, it's just a lot of points. It's 7 points. I mean, granted, in my very cursory statistical analysis, the typical margin of victory from last year was, depending on your estimator, 8 or 10 points.
Okay.
So it's not unlike 7 points is, outside the realm of possibility for a win for Cincinnati. However, I don't know. That just seems like a lot right now for a team that just got spanked by New England. Panthers did just beat the Bears, a team that, is all right. It just seems like things are kind of working for Carolina. They usually have a pretty good defense. This year, not quite as good, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like Cincinnati's offense is jiving. What do you think?
Yeah, Cincinnati did not look good at all coming out of the bye week last week. Like I said, they had whatever 10 or 12 days to prepare for New England and looked like they didn't do any preparation at all. So I'm taking Carolina as well. I thought they looked pretty good, and I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think seven's a little too high. If it was something like 3.5, 4, I might be taking Cincinnati, but that seven's just a little too much for me to take Cincy on that one.
Yeah, Kelvin Benjamin's he's a big reason why I'm kind of liking this Carolina team. He's made himself a pretty good deep threat, scored a couple of touchdowns, and then paired with Greg Olsen, a nice shorter, mid-range guy. If they can get their running game kind of up to snuff, they might be a little better than their 3-2 record suggests.
Right. No, I agree with you there. Kelvin Benjamin is fun to watch. And I was just looking up some stats here real quick from last week. Cam Newton had a good game. He helped bring them back. The last 3 drives the Bears had, Carolina forced turnovers, I think, is what I read, which is insane when you think about it, because really all the Bears had to do is just kind of run out the clock and take control of the game, but they weren't able to do that. Carolina, I think they forced a fumble. They forced 3 turnovers on Chicago's last possession. So one was a strip of Matt Forte, who's usually pretty good with the ball. But yeah, that Carolina, if they can get their rhythm going like they started to last week, Cam Newton was looking pretty comfortable in that no huddle offense. So I think that's something they can build on and continue this week against Cincinnati.
Cam Newton was looking pretty good.
Cam Newton.
X Factor, though, Fozzie Whittaker. If Fozzie Whittaker brings his A game, I think Carolina's going to be all right.
Yeah?
Yeah. Do you know who Fozzie Whittaker is? No, but I don't think anybody does. It's their 4th string running back. I just wanted to say Fozzie Whittaker.
Maybe we'll see him and he'll be next week's thriller. Folks, week 6.
If he does the jokes on me.
Week 6's player to keep your eye on is Fozzie Whittaker. Fozzie Whittaker. All right, who do we have next here?
I need to figure out how many people own Fozzie Whittaker in ESPN standard leagues.
Do you think people draft him just because his name's Fozzie Whittaker? Like in the last round when the rosters are all filled out, and you're like, I need a flex player. He's got a cool name. Like, he's probably not going to play anyway.
Yeah, I'll take a flyer on Fozzie Whittaker. 0.1% of ESPN standard leagues.
There you go.
He hasn't scored a point all year.
He's widely available.
I hope that happens. Just have the egg on my face. I really hope it does. Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Cleveland favored by 2 points. 2 points. No respect for them Steelers.
Respect for the Steelers. Cleveland just came back from the largest road deficit in NFL history.
Yeah, against Tennessee.
But they still came back and won. from a 25-point deficit
All right, all right.
on the road.
Does that mean you're taking Cleveland? Is this
Yeah,
where we
yeah,
diverge?
I'm taking Cleveland.
Ooh, I think I'm taking Pittsburgh.
Tell me why.
Tell you why. It's an interesting question. Part of it's my gut.
Okay, I respect that.
Part of it is Pittsburgh's won the last 4 meetings, which, it's neither here nor there. I don't know. Just have this feeling like Pittsburgh's running game is going to lead the way. The Browns do not have a good rushing defense.
That's true.
They don't have a good passing defense either, which might spell certain doom if Antonio Brown can get open. Have I swayed you yet?
I mean, you're kind of. Yeah, they are 29th in the rush defense category per game. So let's 29th in the rush, and they're 28th in the pass. Ugh.
I mean, who are the skill players that you feel so good about?
Here's my thing with the Browns. Every game this year has been decided by 3 points or less.
Okay.
So they're in every game. Even when they're down 25, it doesn't look like they're in the game. So you play 4 or 5 games, and every game is they're within 3 points one way or the other. It's just hard for me to pick against them at -2.
Well, they already did play the Steelers this year, so we kind of have a point of reference.
Right, and they almost won that game, if I recall.
They almost won that game. Pittsburgh won by 3, even though they did give up 191 yards on the ground. Which is,
I know.
That's what I'm keeping jabbing you with. Running game, ground and pound. I'm ground and pounding with the ground and pound.
All right. You're ringing my bell with the ground and pound.
Yep.
All right.
I'm just going to ring your bell with Le'Veon Bell.
I'm just going to be like Garrett Blunt about it. I'm sticking with Cleveland.
All right, that's fair.
And we'll see who's vindicated next week.
It's your choice.
All right.
Me and Fozzie Whitaker will be just laughing here.
You and Fozzie and Le'Veon.
Yeah, the joke will be on you. We'll be eating Permane Brothers downtown.
Stop by the O later on.
Stop by the O, maybe Uncle Sam's. Have an Iron City.
Uncle Sam's would be so good.
They are so good.
So good. All right.
Green Bay at the Dolphins. Dolphins. Only 3 points.
Green Bay looked so good last week. Granted,
Miami's off the bye.
Miami is off the bye. Is Aaron Rodgers back to being the Aaron Rodgers we've all been accustomed to?
There's a lot of questionables.
That's kind of my concern.
Eddie Lacy. I mean, the last game was kind of the first time anyone who drafted Eddie Lacy felt vindicated about his high draft position.
Right.
I mean, this is the first game he scored more than 15 points. He had 11 in week 4. He had 24 in week 5, and then the rest are 1, 5, and 4.
Right, and he had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns against Minnesota. -3 though. I don't know. I think the Dolphins are just kind of too out of sorts right now.
I mean, it doesn't help that they're still without Noshawn Moreno, even though Lamar Miller is, he's not a bad backup. It's just it seemed like they were doing a lot better with Noshawn.
Oh yeah, they definitely were. I mean, they definitely miss him for sure. I think this is Green Bay's start of a hot streak. I think after people started to freak out, Aaron Rodgers told him to relax. And look what he did against Minnesota on Thursday night. Now, granted, it was against Christian Ponder.
He's going against Ryan Tannehill this time.
Right, so take it as you will. Minnesota's rush defense is 20th in the league. Miami's is a little better. They're 8th in the league. Or excuse me, they are 13th in the league in rush yards per game. and Minnesota is 19. So, obviously Miami's defense is a little better against the rush, so Eddie Lacy might have a little bit more of a problem. But with Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers hooking up and Randall Cobb getting thrown in the mix, I think this is the start of Green Bay's resurgence to the season.
Yeah, things are a little too tightly knit there in the NFC North. We need someone to create some separation. I think this is where Green Bay figures that they have to start winning some games and put themselves at the top of the AFC North or the NFC North. I'm sorry.
I agree. So you're taking Green Bay as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's really either way for one of us to convince the other to take Miami, is there?
Not this week.
All right. Well, one of these weeks, I'm going to try and convince you to take a team that I'm not going to take, just to throw you off.
Challenge accepted.
All right. So we're both on Green Bay there. Let's see what else we got. What's the next one?
San Diego at Oakland. San Diego.
But first, let's discuss the 1:00 games. Our favorite 1:00 games.
The time-honored tradition. New England at Buffalo.
New England at Buffalo.
I don't know that it's going to be a super tight game, but it's a division game. There's, kind of a lot at stake, even though it's only week 6. It just it's going to set the trend. It's going to set the trend for who's going to make their way atop the AFC East. What's your favorite?
For the exact same reasons, I'm taking Colts and Texans.
Okay.
They're both 3-2.
Also a division game. A division game.
Yep, they're a division game, both 3-2. This is a chance for the Colts to kind of step ahead here and take charge of that division. So both picking divisional games this week and should be pretty interesting.
It's almost kind of a similar matchup. You've got one team that scores a lot of points, Indianapolis and New England, kind of give up some points. And then you've got a team that, it's a bit of a tighter game. It's a bit of more of a low score, Buffalo and Houston. It's kind of the same thing. We're just, just kind of different divisions. Just kind of a factor of geography.
It's like Bizarro World.
Yeah.
Up is down. Black is...
East is south.
You missed it. Forget it. I said black is. You were supposed to say white, but you didn't. And you just... we need to work on our banter a little more, so...
But that's the Bizarro thing. You don't get it. You don't get the joke right. You get the joke wrong.
Wouldn't it be bad by?
San Diego, Oakland.
San Diego, Oakland. I don't even care what the line is. Give me San Diego.
Yeah. It's 7, but I'm also taking San Diego.
All right. I mean, that's almost a home game for San Diego. It's just a few hours drive north up the coast. So actually more than a few hours, but they're still playing on the West Coast. They're playing the Raiders, who are just bad. So
the Raiders.
And San Diego looked great last week with the thriller of Brandon Oliver, and Phillip Rivers is establishing himself as an MVP candidate for the season.
Yes, he is.
So not too much we have to discuss on that one, is there?
No. I'm trying to think of what Oakland can bring to the table. It's such a shame that Darren McFadden's just kind of, faded into the background. He was such a fun fantasy player.
I agree. I mean, I just even like saying his name, Darren
McFadden. I just love calling him Run DMC. It's like, it's that guy, Run DMC.
It is a good nickname.
It's a fun football nickname.
Kind of like Fozzie Whitaker.
That's not a nickname. That's a real name.
Well, it's still fun to say.
I know.
All right.
If you would have said 5 years ago that one team would have Darren McFadden and MJD on one team, you would have thought they would be a juggernaut.
Oh, of course.
But they are not a juggernaut. They are a juggernaut. If you see what I did.
I see.
Phonetically, it's the same, but
write it down, folks. It'll make more sense that way.
It'll make sense later.
All right. Next up, Bears at Atlanta. Atlanta is -3.
Chicago is always the underdog, and then I always take them. Last week I got burned. Week before I got burned. Week 3 I was vindicated, but I'm again taking the Bears, even though they're the underdog. I got burned twice in a row.
All right, we're differing. I'm going with Atlanta.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I'm sort of talking myself out of it.
Here's why. Atlanta's coming off 2 road losses.
Yeah.
Bad losses. They're playing back at home where they always put up a lot of points.
Home in the dome.
Home in the dome. And they only have to win by 3. Or more than 3. The spread is 3.
See, here's where the immovable object meets the unstoppable force. Chicago is 2-1 on the road. It seems like they're a little more comfortable on the road this year so far, even though we've only played 5 games. Atlanta is 2-0 at home. Again, small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
But trends notwithstanding, it seems like they're kind of playing to their strengths. But you're right. Atlanta's got, pretty good offense. Seems like the Bears are, sometimes they're a little inconsistent with their offense. Even though Jay Cutler's doing all right. You still have Alshon Jeffrey. Still have Martellus, or no. Wait a second. Wasn't he injured or something? Or am I mixing up my Martellus Bennett's?
No,
he's fine. He's fine.
He just had a bad game last week.
Yeah, no, he's fine.
It was bad.
He just had a bad game last week. He's okay. So those 2 guys making themselves, pretty good targets, along with the always dangerous Brandon Marshall. It's not like they can't score points.
Right. But the Falcons have weapons of their own, of course.
Oh.
They have Julio Jones, as some may say. I get the soft J and the hard J's mixed up. So
yeah, is tough.
But Julio Jones is always a threat. Roddy White's always a threat. Steven Jackson was running the ball pretty well last week against the Giants. And again, they're playing at home, which is for the Falcons a huge advantage. So, basically, Vegas is saying this game's a push minus the field advantage, the home field advantage. So, I'm comfortable taking Atlanta at -3.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sticking to my guns. Chicago.
Okay.
I like that we have 2 games that we've diverged on. 3
Here's going to be a fun one.
No.
Dallas at Seattle. Seattle is -8.
I'm taking Dallas because it's a lot of points. But you know what? Here's what's going to happen. Dallas is either going to win outright, which I think is the likely scenario, only because they're going to win outright, and then people will say, oh, maybe is Dallas better than we thought they were? And then they're going to start tanking in about week 10 or 11. Then they're going to get real close to maybe a wild card or division title, and then they're either going to barely make it and bow out in the wild card round, or they're going to not make it. They're just going to give that glimmer of hope, like Dallas is finally on their way.
So you think Dallas can win outright at Seattle?
At Seattle. I don't know. It's just Dallas always does it. They just sort of make you think like they're going to be all right, and then they settle back into mediocrity.
All right, well, you can have Dallas. I'm taking Seattle.
See, here's the interesting part of the matchup.
Okay.
Seattle has the best rush defense.
Yes.
Dallas, which I'm, only assuming that they heard what I said earlier in the season about them running the ball more and taking the pressure off of Tony Romo, have definitely shown that DeMarco Murray is a good running back. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. He's a good running back. So, that's the real thing that you kind of have to pay attention to. But maybe this is where they pull the old flipperoo and they pretend like they're going to rely heavily on DeMarco Murray, but then Tony Romo has flashes of regular season quarterback Tony Romo, and he's able to find targets with Dez Bryant and Terrence Williams. It's spitballing, but...
Okay. I see your points, but let's keep in mind, Monday night against Washington, Seattle put up 27 points. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They won 27-17.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle had 3 Percy Harvin touchdowns called back because of penalties.
That's true. That's true.
3 passing touchdowns. That would have given them 27-21 divided by 2, carry the 1. That would have given them 48 points. 48-17 is what it could have been, save for those penalties. Seattle had 13 penalties for 90 yards the whole game. That's something Pete Carroll is upset about, I'm sure, and something they're going to work on this week. And going back to the incredible home field advantage they have, I think it would be too much for Dallas to overcome.
Ha 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 ha. But
Sounds like you have a point to make.
Lest you forget that last week at a home game, the Cowboys offense utilized the silent count because their stadium was too loud. They've already practiced. They're getting some reps in. They already kind of understand what it's like to have the loud crowd noises. Might help them going into Seattle. Huh?
All right. We'll see. We will see.
Even though they pulled out a bit of a squeaker against Houston, I don't know. It's just this weird gut feeling I have.
All right. Well, I can't argue with the gut feeling, but I'm going to stick with Seattle. I think.
I'm not going to put cookies on this or anything.
Well,
but I'm not that inclined.
Russell Wilson. If they aren't able to get Marshawn Lynch going, Russell Wilson could just take off like he did last night. He had 122 yards rushing, which is the most in Monday Night Football history. I thought it was interesting. Speaking of the game and the penalties, this whole season, it seems like the primetime games have been blowouts, whether it be Thursday night or Monday night or Sunday night games. A lot of them have seemed to be blowouts. Earl Thomas, the safety for Seattle, mentioned something about that. He, maybe the refs, he kind of hinted that the refs might have been calling, some erroneous penalties just to try and keep the game close. I'm paraphrasing for him, of course, but basically he was hinting that the NFL's a business. People come to watch the game. They expect a good game, and the refs were trying to keep it close. So I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but some of those penalties last night could have been a little on the skeptical side. Just something to chew on.
Interesting hypothesis.
Yeah. Interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you got Dallas, I got Seattle. Next we have Washington at Arizona. Arizona's -3.5.
This is the one I had a lot of trouble with.
It's tough because Arizona had their third stringer from Virginia Tech, I believe, in last week after Drew Stanton got hurt.
Mm-hmm. And the unproven quarterback that he might have to rely on. Plus, is it that weird nebulous of 3.5 points? Huh.
Not quite 3, not quite 4.
Yeah. I took Washington.
Tell me why. Sell me on Washington, as you would say.
Well, the trouble is Arizona's quarterback situation. Drew Stanton has a concussion.
Correct.
Carson Palmer is not quite sure if he's going to play. He still has an ailing shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Thomas, who, looked all right, is an unknown. Don't quite know how he's going to play. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, seemed to connect pretty well with Deshaun Jackson last game.
That's true. They did have a couple plays of over 50 yards.
I mean, even though Kirk Cousins didn't look extremely sharp, he looked a lot better than he did against New York.
True, he did.
The trouble being with Washington is the running game. Remember a couple years ago when it almost didn't matter who the Washington running back was. They were going to get a high draft pick, whether it was Alfred Morris, Roy Halou. It was just whoever the running back was, you just kind of had faith that they were going to get a lot of fantasy points.
Right.
But not this year. Alfred Morris is still the alpha dog. Every once in a while he has a good game. He's not bad, but he's not bad.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, like you said, with Logan Thomas, and you don't know how he's going to do being pushed into this situation. The other thing too is that Arizona also lost cornerback Patrick Peterson to an ankle injury. I don't know if it's bad enough to keep him out this week or if he'll be back, but if he is back, you can be certain that it's still going to be, maybe a little bit nagging, of a nagging injury. Um, I think if basically, basically, if Kirk Cousins just keeps giving the ball to Deshaun Jackson, I think they can win the game. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like Arizona's too banged up. They lost their defensive end Campbell. What was it? His MCL. Julius Thomas for Denver, blocked him low, a little chop block, and messed up his knee, so he's out for the year. So that's kind of a big hit to the Arizona defense, and with a third string young quarterback at the helm, it might be a little too much for Arizona. Maybe they win outright, but I'm guessing it's going to be one of those close games, and I think Washington will be able to at least cover the 3.5, maybe even win.
Yeah, Arizona's losing more personnel on a defense that's already the second worst passing defense in the league. So that's largely a big motivator for me. Kirk Cousins plays like, a somewhat competent quarterback. And I'm sure Deshaun will prove to be a big weapon for them. So what was your pick?
Washington.
Washington. Yeah. I think we both kind of had the same talking points.
Yeah.
I think we both kind of had the same feelings, same key points.
All right, so let's see. Next up, we have the Sunday night game: Giants at the Eagles. Eagles are -2.5.
I'm excited that it's a Sunday night game because then we're going to get the talking head introductions.
LaShawn McCoy, Pitt Panthers.
Love it. I love it.
I know you do. So who are you taking?
If this were the 1:00 game, I would have probably picked this as my favorite because this is going to be a good one.
Oh, for sure.
It's a soft 4-1 against I don't want to call it a hard 3-2, but the real question is, how do you feel about that last game?
I don't know. It's disconcerting as an Eagles fan. Like, you love seeing your defense score points like they did the past 2 weeks, but then you also see that they gave up a total of 54 points in those 2 weeks as well. So they scored, I think the Eagles defense in the past 2 weeks scored 34 and then gave up 54 or something like that. And the way they played at the end of last week against the Rams, the Rams almost had that game. They, were this close to coming back. Austin Davis said he was certain they were coming back to win that game. And if the Eagles do something like that against a veteran like Eli Manning, it's gonna be tough, especially because it's a division foe.
Mm-hmm. The most alarming thing is that Philadelphia gives up a lot of points, and then their offense just kind of stalls out. The fact that the Rams scored 21 unanswered, that you can't even get a point in there,
right?
Especially against a team like New York that's been putting up their fair share of points the last couple of weeks. If your defense kind of has to make some stops, and your offense has to show that it's able to score points.
Right, and for the first couple of weeks of the season, the Eagles' offense was just sputtering in the first half. It took them a long time to get going. Mm-hmm. And then especially against that game against San Francisco, where the defense scored so many points that the Eagles barely got the ball in the first half. The Eagles' offense. So now, Philadelphia per game. They have been putting up 31 points, so that's obviously good, but they've been giving up a lot too. So it's going to be tough. And like you were saying, New York has kind of been coming on the last couple of games. They're looking a lot different than the New York team that started off the season. And right now they're ranked eighth in points per game at 26. So it might be a little too close for my comfort. So I'm gonna let you pick first, and then I'll decide.
I'm not quite unsold on the Eagles yet. I need another game in which they show that they're not able to sort of play it at an elite level. Their 4-1 is misleading, but I think they kind of have the tools to still be a good team.
Right, and it's a little tough too because their rushing game hasn't been the greatest. Granted, there was the other week where Darren Sproles went off, but LaShawn McCoy's not having the type of year that he's capable of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, part of that is he has to split carries.
Well, I think part of the reason he's splitting carries is because he's not performing as well. I mean, I know they want to kind
Could be.
of lighten the load for him a little bit so there's not so much pressure on him throughout the entire year, but when he does get the ball and he does have an opportunity, he doesn't always get the yard. And part of that too is the offensive line. It looked a little bit better this past week because Lane Johnson was back. It hurts that Evan Mathis and Jason Kelsey are out. They're obviously huge in the rushing game. So maybe if they can kind of get some of that back, they can improve on the rushing yards there. But I don't know how I feel about this game. I want to pick the Eagles at -2.5, but the Giants have been playing so well the last couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've after they sputtered the first couple of weeks, their offense has really come out with a bang.
All right, so who are you taking?
Taking Philly, but again, it's one of those things that I'm not. I need to be unsold on Philly as not being the team to beat in the NFC East.
You're not sold.
I'm not sold. It's
All right.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. Who are you taking?
This is killing me. I'm going to take the Giants.
You ready for five numbers? I'm gonna hit you with five numbers, and
Give
you
me
have to
give
tell
me
me what
five
these
numbers.
five numbers are. You have to
All
tell
right.
me what these are after I tell you.
Okay.
Okay, the numbers are 27, 24, 16, 0, and 7. What are those five numbers? Concerns Philadelphia. I'll make it a little easier.
Points in the
27
second half or something like that.
points in the second half scored by the offense. 27, 24, 16, 0, and 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just so tough. Because like you were saying last week, their defense just looked worn down. Rams were able to do basically whatever they wanted. So I mean, if that happens again this week against a team like the Giants with an experienced quarterback like Eli, I mean, who knows how that game will end? All right, I I hope the
Homer.
Eagles win outright,
Of
but I'm
course you
going to
do.
take the Giants on the spread. So
Homer.
well, you know what? Someone's got to.
The thing
Uh,
the thing working for the Eagles is Rashad Jennings is most likely out with an MCL sprain,
okay,
which is nice.
right.
But the Giants still have Larry Donnell, a former fantasy thriller, even though he
Right.
should have been. He might have been a chiller last week. He had no points.
Well, the one thing that does intrigue me with this week's matchup is the over under. It is 50.5.
Hmm.
And the way the Giants have been putting up points and the Eagles have been putting up points all year, I could be tempted to take that over, but and that's a primetime game, and the way the primetime games be going this year, there's been a lot of points scored, so
Yeah,
that'll be
that's
something I'm
true.
gonna consider.
Yeah, there's been wow. I'm just looking over. There's been quite a few. Fewest I've seen so far is 48.
And that's
Yeah,
the fewest.
that's the fewest. You're right.
Yeah. Who was that game where it was 48? Do you know?
The 48 points was Chicago narrowly beating the Niners in week 2, 28-20.
Okay.
Other Sunday night games have been Detroit 35-14, Pittsburgh 37-19, Dallas 38-17, and last week the trouncing of the Bengals 43-17.
There you go.
A lot of points.
A lot of points. All right. So we're going to head to the Monday night game now. We got the Niners at the Rams. Niners are -3.
I don't quite know why it's only 3. I would have guessed 5. I would have guessed.
Well, I mean, I kind of see why it's 3. It's San Fran on the road. Rams put up a lot of points, started to look strong against the Eagles. Maybe people are overvaluing the Rams a little bit. Maybe people think they're better than they really are, and that's why San Fran's getting 3 on the road instead of 4 or 5. I don't know. I'm speculating.
Speculate. That's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. I mean, the only thing that I'm
and the other thing too, although I don't know why this would. Zach Stacy, I believe, was injured last game against the Eagles. So that if that sways your pick, then you're welcome.
It doesn't not sway it, only in the sense that my kind of question mark is the Rams running game in general. Zach Stacy, who I was, bought high on draft day for my fantasy team, it doesn't seem like he's quite the elite running back that we speculated that he might be. Paired with a passing game that their big targets are Brian Quick and Jared Cook. And they're catching passes from Austin Davis. So
True.
It's not skill players that have kind of proven themselves.
So you're taking San Fran.
Taking San Fran, it's kind of the incumbent versus the team that has to show that they're able to beat a team like San Francisco.
Okay.
I mean, even though San Francisco is not having a great year, they're still 3-2. St. Louis is still 1-3. And St. Louis is just giving up a lot more points than they are scoring.
True. And I just wanted to look up some stats. Yeah, last week, Zach Stacy had 11 carries for 42 yards before he left with an injury. Now, when Benji Cunningham took over, he had 7 carries for 47 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 6.7 yards a carry. So if he replicates those numbers this week against San Fran, that could shake things up a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you extrapolate, it's a pretty good game.
Extrapolate exponentially.
Yeah. I mean, the tough thing for him is he's going against a much better defense this week.
Right. No, I agree, and I'm taking San Fran too.
That's fair. That's my pick anyway.
Yeah, they're -3 on the road. That's not too bad for them.
No.
I think that's something they can put together, and if Frank Gore rushes well and Kaepernick hits his passes, hits his targets, will should be sitting pretty on that game.
Yeah, Frank Gore had a pretty good last 2 weeks. 119 yards against Philly in week 4, 107 yards against Kansas City in week 5. Those are pretty good Frank Gore numbers.
Pretty good for old Frankie.
Pretty good for old Frank Gore. Rushing for more.
Frank Gore rushing for more.
Driving up the score.
All right, and just to give you an idea, St. Louis's rush defense is tied for 29th in the league.
Not good.
They've been giving up, on average, 152 yards a game. So
you're not dissuading me. You're persuading me.
I know. I'm just stating some facts for the folks.
Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank looks like he could have another 100-yard rushing game this week. So I would probably start him in your fantasy league if you have him.
I wholeheartedly agree.
All right. So what's that's it for the games. What's your most exciting non-1 o'clock?
Dallas Seattle has potential, but gun to my head, I'm picking New York Philadelphia. That's gonna be a really good primetime matchup. Unless of course it gets lopsided as these primetime matchups are wont to do.
Well, that's true. I'm going to take the Eagles and Giants as well. That's a division matchup.
A lot of good ones this week.
Prime time. Although I almost wanted to say the Chargers Raiders because I want to see how many points the Chargers are going to be able to hang on the Raiders this week. They put up 31 against the Jets last week, and we'll see what happens with that. Maybe the Raiders show us a thing or two, but
see if San Diego can kind of prove their worth. I see.
Yeah.
It's still a good litmus test, even though it's the Oakland Raiders.
True. Very true. But yeah, as far as meaning and clout behind the game, I'm gonna take that Eagles Giants.
Yep. Solid choice. Very solid choice.
All right, so that concludes our Week 6 picks. Pick 6. Oh, we should have done we missed out on that one. All right.
I didn't think of that either, so it's okay.
I know these things come. It's too late. All right. Anything else you want to add for this week?
I do just want to mention that No Punt Intended has its own Twitter.
Woo!
So you can submit any comments, questions, queries, qualms to our Twitter, which is at NoPuntIntended. I'll let you explain that. You explain it a lot better than I do.
All right. Yeah, it's No Punt in 10, the number 10, 10, and then DED. No Punt in the number 10, DED. Yep, send us any questions or any concerns in 140 characters or less, and we'll see what we can do. Maybe discuss, some things on next week's podcast. So, thanks for tuning in. Again, be sure to check us out on Entertainment Buddha, www.entertainmentbuddha.com, where we make you a better geek one post at a time. All right, we'll catch you next week.